Welcome back, everybody. This is Brother Mean here. Today we're doing a follow-up video. This is the War Priest Spells Part 2. And again, as someone has previously pointed out in the very first video that I've done, these literally are going to be identical, so far as I can tell, to all the Cleric spells. So again, Clerics will have access to these at level 3 and 4 as well. If that is true, which I'm fairly certain it is, then that is actually good news, because that means when we finally finish all the War Priest spells, which again are Orison's level 0 all the way up to level 6 spells, that means we'll actually have covered everything for the Cleric spells from 0 to 6 as well. When I start to do the Cleric videos, you can actually see that we can jump right to level 7, 8, and 9 spells and be done with it, again, reasonably quick. But I do need to verify that, because again, the reason I'm doing it this way for the subcasters, if you will, like the War Priest, the Magus, is because of the Magus. I know specifically has spells, for example, that the Wizards or the Sorcerers, which they normally pull their spell books from, do not have access to. There's not a bunch, but there is some differences. And again, I have yet to prove to myself that this is true for the War Priest versus, say, the Cleric. Same when we do things that'll dip into a class like a Ranger, that'll actually cover spells that fall in the Druid spell book more likely than not. There's still going to be exceptions to the rule in many cases, I assume, and therefore we're going to try to partial that out a little bit for you guys. So let's get to it, shall we? So we have for level 3 spells, again, we're using the same little notes for every spell. So if it's underlined, that means there's some sort of save or skill check or some such that will literally impact the spell's effectiveness. There's also, of course, an asterisk next to the spell. Then that means there's no spell resistance. This is going to be extremely important for those of you that have a subcaster build, which means you're dipping outside of your caster class. So like say you're doing War Priest, maybe you did a 1 or more level dip for Monk to get yourself some punching ability, that high Wisdom armor class, again, not wearing any armor. Not really necessary in my opinion, since War Priest A has the ability to wear armor and use shields, so why would you need extra? I suppose if you wanted to solo, that touch attack armor is really appealing. But the other is, there is a subclass of the War Priest that allows you to basically be a monk. You cannot actually pick monk levels with that one, which is again kind of cool, but that's going to be for another video when we talk about the classes and the subclasses as well. Again, we are using mods here, so this is the Eldritch Arcana and the Call of the Wild mods, so which is why you're going to see spells that are not available in the vanilla version of the game. So again, sorry for those of you that have this on console, but this is really for those of us that are playing on the PC. The other things that you'll see here is the note after the spell, basically just telling us what school the spell comes from. So again, N for Necromancy, for example, C for Conjuration, and so on and so forth. So this is again broken down at the bottom of our list here to see how many spells we have per school, and in parentheses how many in that list have saves. So again, it's easier for you, for those of us that are interested in, say, spell focus, Necromancy, for example. We can see that Necromancy has a strong showing here, and that might be something of value, right? But the list for level 3 spells again are Blindness, Archon's Aura, Bestow Curse, Contagion, Cure and Inflict Serious Wounds. Again, I combine those two together because they're just mirror images of each other, but notice again, one's a Conjuration spell, one's a Necromancy spell. Communal Delay Poison, Dispel Magic, Magical Vestment, Prayer, Protection from Energy, Remove Blindness and Disease. Again, I combine those because they're similar even if they are different, but they have the same general effect. It removes blindness or removes disease, obviously, and they're both Conjuration spells, so no real difference here. I have Remove Curse separate simply because, again, it's an Abjuration spell, but again, it's more of the same. Communal Resist Energy, Searing Light, Summon Monster 3, Animate Dead, Deadly Juggernaut, Invisibility Purge, Greater Stunning Barrier, Sands of Time, and Channel Vigor. And again, you'll notice at the very end there we have a lot of spells that showed up that are unique to this class. So like, or not class, excuse me, to these mods. So Deadly Juggernaut, Invisibility Purge, I think was actually in the game, but I can't remember. Greater Stunning Barrier definitely is a better spell. Sands of Time is new, Channel Vigor is new as well. And Animate Dead, while it's not new, it is modified now. So again, we'll talk about that as we break those down. But as you can see, with the exception again of Divination and Illusion spells, we have a pretty decent showing for most classes, or most schools of spell. We have Abjuration showing up decent amount of times, not surprising since you're basically going to be a magic cop, if you will. You're buffing and protecting, and that's kind of what you do as a cleric, or in this case a war priest. Conjuration is a decent showing again as well, because again, many of the clerical spells and war priest spells are going to be ones that heal, and healing spells routinely, not all, but routinely are conjuration spells. Weird that you don't get a lot of divination spells for someone who's basically talking to the divine all the time. That seems weird to me, but whatever. Illusion, the fact that it's not there is not surprising. Necromancy, again, for those of you who want to play, say, an evil war priest, this could come in seriously fun. You know, for those that want to do, say, the Necrolord build. Again, Necromancy has a nice strong showing here. Transmutation spells, again, are here. Nothing with saves. But again, the fact that there's no saves doesn't mean it's not a useful spell for you to cast. So we'll see a variety of really good spells in this level 3 stuff. So let's talk about them individually. So blindness, just like it sounds, literally you affect one creature. It is a save or suck spell. If they fail this curse, because it is a curse, then they're permanently blinded. Normally that would be like, oh my god, permanently blinded, we're so screwed. How do we handle that? Again, you're going to be leading your teammate all the way back to base, whatever, under the blindness effect until they can get this cured, because obviously they're permanently blinded. For the game, it's not that big of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a big deal. They're blinded for that fight. Why do I say for that fight? Because either A, they're going to win and who cares what happens after that, or B, you're going to win. So it's not really important that it's permanent. You know what I mean? This is important for you, for when it affects you or your team, and that, of course, is an issue. But again, don't discount the blindness effect. The blindness effect really means that the target can't see anything, and therefore, technically speaking, every target at that point it has basically greater invis on. They literally have a 50% chance to miss those targets then, because again, they're permanently concealed because they're blind. They can't see shit. So this is a definite buff, if you will, for your team, if you want to think of it in that regard. Has a nice range. The medium range can't be discounted. This really does allow you to early set up a blindness effect, maybe before the fight even starts. It is a true save or suck spell though, so if they make the save, again, nothing happens. So again, kind of annoying. But, and again, these are always throwing in that caveat, since it seems to, again, be another necromancy spell. I'd be more interested in this type of spell if I was going to be a Necrolord. If I had spell focus, maybe even greater spell focus, necromancy, was relying on gear that gave me buffs to my curses or necromancy spells as far as the DC check to make sure that it's more likely to land than not. And again, there is no miss with this spell. It's just there is a saving throw. So it's not a ray spell per se. Archon's Aura. This one is actually getting a lot of bang for its buck, in my opinion. A really nice spell for you. Basically, it's a personal effect buff that you cast on yourself, but it's not a buff so much as it's a AoE debuff for any bad guy that gets near you. They have a chance to save or suck, and then you can break the spell then. Or they can break the spell if they hit you once. So again, the effect is transient, if you will. But the fact that it's a buff on you that can last for many rooms and therefore presumably many fights, this is a decent spell in my opinion. And I do like the fact that it's a will save. So again, when you're fighting those fighter types and those rogue types, the high reflex, high fortitude, depending on which ones we're talking about, this is a pretty good chance that they're going to be at penalty. And the penalty is for their attack rolls, their saves, and to their armor class. So this is a really big screw you to the bad guys. So it's easier for us to hit them, it's harder for them to hit us, and our spells are more likely to land. So again, you can see the appeal. The fact that there's no spell resistance, I kind of put that up there, but I want to be real clear on this. For stuff like this, you do want to test this. I haven't done so. The reason I say this, something you want to test, it clearly says no spell resistance. I find that the game is buggy in a way where the modders, or in the case of the devs even, weren't really thinking about the spell in that you're buffing yourself. So of course there's no spell resistance. If you had spell resistance, you can try to buff yourself with this spell and it would not work. So maybe that's what they mean. So what I mean is, if it's a bad guy attacking you, if they have spell resistance, does it still factor in here? Yes or no? And again, it says no, so hopefully that's true. But if there is spell resistance, don't be surprised. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but it's one of those things that you almost have to live with stuff like that in these games, because there's almost always stuff that gets missed. And while sure that sucks, it's not going to stop me from wanting to cast a spell, let's put it that way. Bestow Curse. Another spell that, again, if I was a necromancy guy, I'd really like to have it. This is one, though, that I just can't make myself grab. The reason for this is, again, it's a melee touch attack, so there's a chance that you can miss it. Critting doesn't do a goddamn thing, so if you happen to roll that nat 20 on that melee touch attack, who cares? It is a true save or suck spell, so if they are affected, great. If not, well, then you just wasted your combat turn. But there's some really nice debuffs here. So again, you get to pick, when there's one spell, but you get to pick which of the 4 curses you slap on them. Again, just in briefing, I'm not going to go by the names, but then a penalty to con, or a penalty to strength and dex, or a penalty to all 3 mental stats, or my personal favorite, the one that's a penalty to their attacks, their saves, their ability checks, and their skill checks. And that's solid. That's a solid screw you to the target. Now, whether this can kill them or not, I don't know. The reason I say that is, remember, if you're ever taking an ability stat, doesn't matter which of the 6 it is, to 0 or less, they're technically dead. The game just decides that that's it, they're done, they're over. So if that's a thing, when again you could see the appeal, especially for a necromancy build, because you have necromancy spells for early levels like Ray of Enfeeblement, which lowers strength, as you know. So if you zap them with that and then hit them with the Curse of Weakness, or lowers the strength 6 points, is that enough to take out a target? I don't know, but that'd be pretty appealing. You can see how much fun you can have with stuff like this. And I don't believe, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't remember that your Ray of Enfeeblement is capable of killing them. What I mean is, I think that it can take them down to a low strength stat, but never to 0. But that doesn't mean that you can't weaken them with that spell and then hit them with, say, something like this and just take them out altogether. And that would be a nice 1-2 combo if that works. Now, the downside of that is, while a -6 is potent, don't kid yourself, most targets you're going to fight are not going to have a strength of like 6 or lower. They're going to have a strength of like 10 or higher, especially if it's a fighter type. So you're going to hit guys with like 20s and 30s and higher strength like trolls, where again they may have a terrible will save, so that -6 penalty will probably land, but it's not going to be really enough to take them out. But certainly you can see the appeal here. A penalty to con, you're lowering their fortitude saves from that point over. You lower their strength and dex. Now the reflexes are screwed a little bit. Their armor class is down a little bit. Their swing is definitely down, whether they're a weapon finesser or a strength-based build. You've just penalized their attacks and probably their damage output significantly. The intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, obviously better on those caster types that are, you're definitely relying on those things. So again, really useful for stuff like that. But again, I prefer the one that's just a straight up penalty to everything. And I don't say that that's better, but I do like that it's just a -4 to their chance to hit me and or my team and our pets and our summons. The penalty to the saves, ability checks, and skill checks just is like gravy on top, where again, more of my spells are more likely to land. Contagion, another spell that, again, if I was a necromancy guy, I'd probably like it. Again, another melee touch attack is required, so it can miss. A crit doesn't do a damn thing as far as I know. It is a true, again, save or suck spell. There is some fun that can be had here besides the obvious penalty to damage, and the fact that the disease, I think they're affected by it, and it checks routinely. What I mean is they have to either get cured or have something remove the disease, or make their fortitude check at some point. Otherwise, they continue to take whatever damage we're talking about, strength, dex, con, blah, blah, blah. So, again, you can see that there's a variety of choices. Again, I love my choices, so I'm pretty happy about that. A couple honorable mentions here in the fact that the Blinding Sickness can literally have 2 saves to it, one for the strength damage and the follow-up one for whether they're permanently blinded. Hence the name Blinding Sickness, so you can see the appeal here. So it's kind of like the blindness spell, but better. So again, only difference here being is that the blindness spell, again, necromancy spell, is auto hit. This is not. So there's that. And again, the strength penalty, I kind of dig that. The other one for con damage, the bubonic plague, target is fatigued as a result of this. So again, you can see the appeal here, because not only are they taking con damage, then there's a -2 to their strength and dex technically, because that's what fatigue does. And again, some pretty interesting stuff here. And I assume, just like everything else, again, that if they're taking their stats down to 0 or lower, eventually they will die. So again, a good way for you to set this stuff up. But again, the fact that it is a disease, which means that a lot of targets in the game might be immune to disease, as well as the fact that it's going to have to tick, tick, tick over multiple periods of time. And I can't remember how much time it is. Whether it's like every round, every other round, every 10 rounds, if it's every hour. Certainly this would be a spell that would screw you and your team over, but if you're relying on that for the bad guys, what's the chances you're diseasing somebody and then coming back in a goddamn hour to see if it ticked one more time? it's not a thing. That's why I'm not a fan of these types of spells. You'll find I have the same disdain for like the poison spells. It's not that they're bad. They're bad for what we're doing in a video game setting. Okay. Cure Serious and Inflict Serious Wounds, again, coupled together, just same as what we see before. Now we're up to 3d8 of healing / damage, and a bonus to the healing / damage equal to your caster level up to a max of 15. Of course, that can be intensified, that can be empowered for the 3d8 or maximized for the 3d8. And again, that's not that impressive. We recommend you don't do this because while there may not be a much better spell down the road, it's really not getting as much bang for your buck as you think. You're probably better off just casting like AoE versions of this to heal your team versus using something as precious as 3-slotted level 6 spell, for example. But it's still good for damaging undead, healing undead, damaging the living, healing the living, depending on which one we're using, of course. Of course, there's a will save for either. There's no spell resistance for either, and that, again, implies when you're fighting someone, you're trying to damage them, like you're inflicting wounds, or if you're trying to cure the undead and therefore hurt them, that there's no spell resistance associated, which is kind of nice. It is a melee touch attack. Of course, as a result of that, there is sneak attack potential here. And of course, I don't mention it, but there's always that chance to crit. And that does work for damaging spells like this, as far as I know. So that's a thing. And it should be just on a nat 20, and it should be just double the damage. Delay Poison Communal. This is a decent spell for what you're getting for it. I mean, literally a 1-hour buff for you and your team. The downside really is it does not protect your summoned pets, your monsters, your undead, things of this nature. But again, in some cases, many of these things are already immune to poison. But it is kind of annoying that you're not buffing the quote-unquote team, just the guys that are part of your party as well as their animal companions. Those still are viable because they're controlled, I think, is the way that works. But it's a decent one, decent size AoE, so the chances that you catch everybody in it is pretty good. Why do I mention that? Because while you certainly would love to pre-buff up with this, well, everyone, of course, will be in the circle if you pre-buff up with it, but if sometimes you get jumped, and you see, oh shit, we got a lot of poison bad guys coming here and no one has delay poison on, the chances you can get into position and buff up everybody or most everybody is pretty good still. So I like that fact, that it has a decent radius, if you will. And that 1 hour duration, while it doesn't sound amazing when you compare it to, say, delay poison, which is 1 hour per caster level, I find that 1 hour is almost always enough to clear most, if not all, the dungeons in the game. So it's still a pretty solid buff. And again, for a level 3 casting versus casting the level 2 lower version multiple times, yeah, I'd rather just protect the whole damn team. Spell Magic. Another one of those spells that, you know, in pen and paper, we would use this all the time. And again, for those of you that may have seen my previous video and my flaming and bitching about counter spell, remember, I'm not considering Dispel Magic, Greater Dispel Magic, or things that counter spells directly, like Bane counters Bless and Bless counters Bane. I'm not considering that the same as Counter Spell. Counter Spell, for those of you that don't know, is a spell that literally is abused beyond all measure in our pen and paper games, where any spell that's coming your way, Counter Spell, and it doesn't work now, you know, it's fucking bullshit. But Dispel Magic and Greater Dispel Magic, I'm for these types of spells, just so we're really clear here. These ones are decent. Dispel Magic, and I didn't put up here the uses, but I should have. This is the only one of the two, Greater Dispel Magic being the other, that's capable of dispelling AoE effects. And you were like, well, why doesn't Greater Dispel Magic do that? It's greater, and yeah, for whatever reason it doesn't. Now maybe the modders have changed that. If they have, thank God. If not, then that still sucks. But Greater Dispel Magic can be cast on an area. It does not seem to debuff area of effects. Now, the modders have given you the ability to dismiss effects, but I believe that's only for your effects, like the spells that you have cast. And you can test this by literally taking two characters, having one cast Stinking Cloud, say at a distance, and then having the other guy try to dispel it. He will, or not dispel, excuse me, dismiss it, and it won't work. Why? Because he wasn't the one that cast it. So you have to go back to the original caster and say, oh no, you are the one that's going to wave your hand and make it go away. And sure enough, it works. So again, that's kind of nice. It does not remove area of effects like someone else's Stinking Cloud. And again, that's what Dispel Magic is for. So when the bad guys cast that shit at your feet or whatever, and you just want to make it go away, Dispel Magic is your go-to. There's two choices. As you see in the tooltip here, you can cast it on a creature, or you can cast it on an area effect. but it literally is just a point. Like literally you click and you point at the dirt where the AoE effect is. And the downside of this spell is it only removes one spell effect, I believe, which is kind of a bummer. And I believe it goes from the highest caster level down. I think I'm saying that right. So like literally if you're think of like Cloud Kill versus Stinking Cloud. Cloud Kill is definitely higher. If both are in the same area of effect, which I have done, I like to sicken them or nauseate them, with like Stinking Cloud, and then make sure they're like swaying back and forth and puking their guts out. And if my teammates are immune to poison, that means they're also immune to not only Stinking Cloud, but also Cloud Kill. Then I'll throw a Cloud Kill down on the son of a bitches. And while my guys meleeing them, or basically just aggroing them, if you will, into the cloud, they're basically constantly taking con damage. And you can see the appeal. So again, if you had something like that and the bad guys were to throw a Dispel Magic on that area of effect, the first thing it will check against would be, does it dispel Cloud Kill? Yes or no. If it's yes, then the spell's done. If it's no, then it says can it dispel anything else that's in the area effect, like Stinking Cloud? Yes or no. Maybe it's no again. Well, maybe there was a web spell down. That's even lower than Stinking Cloud. So then it would check against web spell and say, oh, does it dispel web spell? Oh, yep. Okay, now again, dispel magic is done. So it just goes through the list. And I believe it's the same on a target creature. So literally you pick somebody and say like he's got blur, greater invis, and displacement, God knows who else, what kind of buffs. So again, it goes from the highest to the lowest, and as soon as it dispels one of those effects, poof, the spell's done. And again, that's not the horrible thing about it. It's just kind of annoying because you get a lot of buff bloat, if you will, on characters in this game, whether we're talking about your main characters or your teammates or even the bad guys. And the downside is the game kind of cheeses it, where the bad guys get multiple buffs at the start of the fucking combat. They're not usually casting spells. Oh, let me get my mirror image up. Oh, wait, now let me use blur. Oh, okay, now. No, they're just like, they cast a spell, the fight's on like Donkey Kong, and now the motherfucker has like 5 buffs on, like Stone Skin, Greater Invis, he's got the displacement, he's got blur, he's got mirror image. It's just ridiculous amount of buffs that the son of a bitch has. And while this may help, especially when you're really struggling with some of those caster types late in the game, I probably would go with still Greater Dispel Magic, because again, it's get a buff, if I'm not mistaken, for the chance, because there's a die roll to overcome the effect. Magical Vestment. This is the one that I love. I would love it even more if it worked properly. There's 2 effects here. There's the ability to get armor enhancement magical buff, and there's a chance to get a shield enhancement magical buff. The downside is the shield one does not work. It says you can do it. You can check it yourself. It doesn't do shit. But the armor one does work, and it doesn't even have to be armor. It just has to be clothing of some kind, and that doesn't mean that you can strip your character naked and the stupid thong that they give you counts as armor. Nope, you have to actually wear robes. And one of the downsides I will say of this game, quite frankly, is they don't give you the ability to just put on goddamn clothes. If that was something that the devs or even a modder could just add, like here's some pants and a shirt, and that still counts as fucking, quote unquote, your armor slot, where this spell would buff it, I'd be fine with that, because I would feel stupid walking around with robes on and saying magical vestment if I'm not that kind of a character. Jeans and a t-shirt, good enough for me, man. Magical vestment that shit up and give myself a nice buff to your armor. And this buff does stack with the magical armor itself. This is one of the selling points, quite frankly. So if you have, say, let's just say you have like leather +2 on, and you cast this spell at full 20th level caster, so you get a +5. It's not leather armor +2 being brought up to +5. No, it's leather armor +2. That's in your armor categories, the 2 of the 3. Remember, it's not touch armor, so it falls under armor. It falls under flat-footed armor, because it's armor. And then the +5 that we just cast on ourselves will be under a separate category. So you'll see armor, leather +2, and whatever that is. I think it's 2 and 2 is, so it's +4 armor right there. And then this will be under armor enhancement brackets, +1 all the way up to +5. And it lasts for many, many, many hours, which is another really big selling point here. The fact that it's not only just you can buff a teammate or a pet with it is nice. I don't think it works on the pets again, because they need armor, clothes of some kind to wear, and I don't think that they're allowed to even wear robes. The modders may have changed that, and I've noticed the modders have added a lot of things where you can give like rings and necklaces, kind of like chokers and chains and whatever for your fucking pets, which is cool. I kind of dig that shit, but I don't think they get to wear like robes or armor and things like that. If they do, again, I'm wrong, give them some cheap-ass robes that you just found that aren't going to penalize them in any significant way, and then you can use this spell on them and give them a solid +1 all the way up to +5 armor buff. You can see the appeal here. But the fact that the shield part of the spell is broken, It's kind of a bummer. This is one of the ones that, again, kind of, if it was working as intended for both, this would be a spell you would not ever want to turn down, because you're wearing armor as a cleric, or in this case a war priest. And then of course you'll be using a shield more likely than not, because again you're trained in those, right? So why not get a +5 and another +5? You could see the appeal. The fact that it has such a long duration, of course, is the massive selling point here as well. So you can literally buff up, even without, say, extended magic. You can buff up and take on a dungeon, decide that you're out of spells or need some healing or whatever, so it's time to take a knee, rest for 8 hours, get back up, and you still got the buff on some of your characters. You can see the appeal for spells like this. Prayer. Now we're talking. It's a low duration buff, but having said that, of course, extend comes in super appealing here. This is a buff/debuff spell that you will love. This is kind of like Bane and Bless kind of combined, but a little more on top. And let me explain what I mean by that. So instead of having a saving throw for the bad guys, it just works on them. The spell resistance is still applicable, but by and large there is no saving throw. If you hit prayer when they're in the area of effect, they are affected by it, which is fucking baller. It's a penalty for them, but a bonus to you and, of course, your team if they're in the area of effect. So again, you can see the appeal. So you're doing two things for the price of one. Buffing you and, of course, your teammates, and penalizing bad guys all in the same stroke. Now, the AoE is still an impressive 40-foot burst. That's a big AoE. It is, again, centered on the caster, so make sure your war priest runs the fuck up and in it and buffs or debuffs the bad guys. That would be how I'd preemptively use it. I wouldn't really use this to buff the team. Anyone that I catch on the team, sure, hey, that's great, but by and large, it's all about fucking over those dudes and making this fight trivial, and this would be a good way of doing so. The buff as a luck bonus, that is kind of a problem. I didn't put it in the problem, but I should have. Why? Because you'll find for your war priests and, of course, cleric spells that there is a lot of buff bonuses that you'll find that are luck bonuses, which means, of course, they don't stack. Now, having said that, there's a lot of different buffs that this gives you, and they're all luck bonuses. So, again, you may have a luck bonus for attacks and damage, but did you have one that buffs attack, damage, saves, and skill checks? No. Well, then at least you're getting some reason to layer them, if you will. I know that sounds weird, but think of your divine favor we talked about in the previous video. This is one that's a luck bonus to your attack bonus and your damage for your weapon for only 1 minute. And this, of course, could potentially last longer. It could last up to 2 minutes, 4 minutes if you extended it. But that's not what I mean. I'm talking about the fact that that +1 luck bonus to attacks and damage from this spell would be negated by the other guy, because by now certainly it would be at +2 or at least, if not a +3. That's awesome, and certainly you would want that. But that's all that one's giving you. This one then layered on top of it, or with it, side by side, however you want to think about it, while I'm not getting any more attack or damage buffs, they don't stack, I will get the save bonus and the skill check bonus. You see that? So that's what I mean by layers. Okay. And again, when the other one wears off in a minute, maybe 2, this one's still going for 2 minutes total, maybe 4. So again, you don't lose all of your attack and your damage bonus. You see that? So instead of it being +3, now it drops off and going back to 0 and 0. No, this one's still on you. You're getting your +1 and your +1. And I know that's confusing, but trust me, when it makes more sense when you're actually buffing your character, you'll see it in the combat log. You're like, oh, I lost that spell. Oh, but I'm still at +1. Okay, at least I got something. That's why I kind of like spells like this. And of course, I love spells like this for the simple reason that there's no save for the bad guys, and they just take a solid minus penalty for all those other things. Attacks, damage, saves, skill checks, and that's a real big screw you to the bad guys. It sets up you and your team's other spells, sets up, well, you may think, well, who gives a shit about skill checks? Well, you do, because remember, skill checks imply things like perception. So if you have maybe a ninja bastard kind of coming in all stealthily, and he's still hidden, and he's trying to get that sneak attack off, if he's perceived, well, guess what? He's not hidden anymore. And again, no flat-footed / sneak attack potential there, technically speaking. So, again, a penalty to their skill checks, that's a penalty to perception, penalty to other stuff as well. So you can see the appeal, as well as there are some spells, again, that don't have saves per se, but they do have skill checks associated with them. Or both. Web spells, a fine example. There is a save, of course, or like a reflex save, I want to say, to get out of it, or to not be immediately entangled by it, so to speak. But then every round that they're still in the area of effect, there's like a skill check to see if they can move properly, you know, like an athletics check or a mobility check or some such. That is a skill check. And therefore, if they're penalized, again, you're making it harder for them to get out of another effect, another teammate's spell, or one of your spells for that matter. So again, you can see the appeal here. So it's a really, really nice 1-2 punch, if you will. Protection from energy. Again, a decent spell. Again, really good duration. That's only undercut by the fact that it probably will not last the full time, because once you've exceeded the damage potential of the spell and what it can absorb, like a force field, if you will, then it pops and the spell's gone. You have to reapply it. And again, that's no big deal. You'll probably have multiple castings of this, so fine, just recast it. But then it gets fiddly and you're wasting your time. Instead of attacking, you're basically buffing. Well, the one good thing I can say about this spell is eventually you get to the point where it absorbs a decent amount. And the other good thing I can say is that it will make you immune, even if it is short term, to the damage type that you're basically buffing against. And the damage type is chosen by you when you cast a spell. That's 5 different types of elemental damage. They have included Sonic in here, which of course they should have, so that's still good. But you have your acid, your fire, your cold, and your electric still in there as well. Again, you may cast it 5 times to buff you from all 5 types. If that's your thing, hey man, do that thing, but that's kind of wasteful in most opinion. But I've done it. So, you know, if you don't know what's coming and you just don't want to fucking deal with that shit, I mean, especially if, and the only real reason I would suggest stuff like this would be if you're cheesing it to the point where you're taking a knee after every goddamn fight. So you have like infinite uses of your spells. That's one. The other would be if you're playing like, say, Last Islanti mode, which of course I would never fucking seriously want to do, and you don't know what's coming. You can't die. Remember, if you die, game's over. You just wasted God knows how many hours of your time. So maybe you want to just say, fuck it. Every buff. Yep, all the buffs. Give me the buffs, every buff, and walk in like a goddamn magical juggernaut. Hey, that's fucking cool. I have done shit like that, especially on like Neverwinter Nights 2. But in this game, you're probably still not going to do it. But when I said that this can give you short-term, if you will, immunity to the damaging type, let's just pick a damaging type. Let's say fire. You make yourself protection from energy fire. Let's say it's at full strength, so you're at level 10th caster level or higher. So again, you're absorbing a full 120 points of fire damage. Literally, any damage that's coming your way, doesn't matter if it's 1 round, 2 rounds, 7 rounds. If it totals up no more than 120, you've taken no damage from that. Okay, that's what that means. Again, you are immune. But again, only so much that it will absorb that much damage. The moment you take enough damage to exceed that 120, whether it's a 30 fireball 4 times in a row doing 120, and then another one that sneaks through doing 1 point of damage, now suddenly the spell has popped, and then that 1 point of damage comes through, and now you've taken fire damage. That sucks. But for short term, if, you know, like you just know that fire damage is going to fuck you over, or whatever damage, poof, buff up, run the fuck in, kill them as fast as possible. And again, that's why I say the duration, while at 10 minutes per level sounds nice, it needs shit. And this would be one that, I suppose, because the duration is so nice, that if I'm in an area and I know, like, for example, like say I'm in the tundra, and all the wizards and clerics and whatever up there are obviously casting cold fucking spells because they're total dicks that way, then sure, I'll pre-buff up with, you know, like some protection from energy against cold effects, because it pretty much is expected in that dungeon. Poof, I'm covered. The downside to me on the stuff like that is this: I'm not keeping track of the damn force field. I mean, yeah, you can keep track of it. You can look at the picture and you'll say, oh, you have it for this many rounds, but it doesn't say how many points of damage you've taken to the force field, which I think is a mistake, by the way. It does. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Be something that really, really nice for you to add, or modders if you're capable. I'm definitely not. Feel free to put that in the tooltip. You know, when you scan over and say, oh, you've absorbed 109 points of damage out of the 120. Fucking awesome. Thank you for letting me know that the next attack's gonna fuck me over. And again, decent spell. Definitely better if you layer it with any kind of other spell elemental damage resistance. I highly recommend, of course, resist energy being an example, because they are layered. And the way it works is you have your force field up and you have your resist energy up. Let's say it's at full strength for both of them. That same fire, 120 damage absorbed before that first spell pops. But if resist energy fires on you and it's at full strength, which means it absorbs up to 30 damage, anytime fire damage comes in your way, it's reduced by 30 right off the fucking bat. And then anything that bleeds over that goes on the force field. And now you can see the appeal of the two. Okay. But again, if you had a choice, in my opinion, most people swear by protection from energy because, again, the immunity. I say, fuck that shit. I mean, it's only going to be immune for like a round, maybe 2 or 3, depending on how bad the situation is. I'd rather do resist energy. I'd rather know that for the 10 minutes per caster level, for the full fucking time, I have 10, 20, or 30 resistance to X amount of, or X type of elemental damage. Period. If I could get both, like I say, I always would get both. But if it's a hard choice between one or the other, it's resist energy for me. And that's just my personal flavor. Remove blindness, remove disease. Again, these fall into that category of when you need them, you'll kind of know. And sometimes you won't know, and that's the worst part. Remove blindness is a fine example. If you're not paying attention, I can't tell you the number of times that I've done playthroughs, and you can probably watch my Let's Play where I've actually completed the game. It was fun. Definitely wanted to do it on video, but it took a lot longer because I was chit-chatting it up while playing, which was so silly. So it took even longer to beat it. But I did showcase a lot, I think, and I did enjoy it. At least enjoyed it for recording it for posterity's sake, I suppose. But you'll see many times where my characters are blind and I just wasn't paying attention to the fact that they had the big, it looks like a big black purpley cloud surrounding your head. And it's obvious that you're blinded, and I just not paying attention. I'm like, why the fuck is she missing? Oh shit, she's been blind. How long has that been on? And I just not paying attention. And these are decent spells. Don't kid yourself. As a cleric, this is what you do. But again, this is one of those that falls more into like pen and paper than it does the game. Sure, it works in the game, but who the hell is honestly going to be a cleric that packs a remove disease? Fuck that shit. Same with my remove blindness. I'll just keep the potions handy. I mean, pocket cleric, baby. It's for the win, you know? It's just, for this game, nah. Let's rant. If I were a more capable person, or if I had connections for the Pathfinder Kingdom, where I could like literally tell the devs and or the people that made Pathfinder, the first edition of Pathfinder, what I would have done. You know how clerics all have the ability to like, if they're good or neutral clerics, or positive energy clerics, however you want to phrase it, where they can convert any spell to a heal. I would allow them to convert any of their spells into one of these as well. The same level, of course. Like a level 3 spell can be turned into remove disease like that. Because why wouldn't your deity want you to have that ability? They're letting you fucking heal, but diseases and removing blindness? Oh no, you gotta prepare for that shit, son. Fucking seriously? I'm only God up here. I mean, fucking that sounds dumb, right? So I would literally take a short list. I mean, it wouldn't be crazy, like remove curse, that's different. But diseases, blindness, like restoration, lesser restoration, shit of that nature, that would definitely be on the, you can convert it into one of those. I think that would be game breaking, really. Maybe to have some fun with it, since there's obviously spells that are going to fall into the categories that are opposite of this and can remove blindnesses here. We talked about blindness. That's the opposite fucking spell, right? I mean, technically speaking. So again, if you're worried that, oh, all the good and neutral or the positive channeling or energy channeling clerics are getting way too much bang for their buck because the negative or the evil clerics, if you will, are using inflict spells, we'll give the reverse to them. To convert any spell into blindness, convert any spell into a disease effect, which again definitely exists in this game. That's fucking cool. I would not hesitate to do that in a pen and paper setting if I was DMing, for example, because I really do find that, oh, you can turn any spell into a heal. Yay. Am I going to need that? Probably not, because if you're taking that much damage, you guys are fucked up. Let's just say it. So, it's one of those things. But again, remove disease, especially the way this game plays out. I mean, in a pen and paper setting, the diseases, not all of them, I probably shouldn't say it like this, but from memory, I'm going for D&D now, the diseases are never, check every 5 seconds to see if you die. What? Those are some fucking bad diseases. Then I would, of course, keep a spell like that on hand. And again, that does kind of happen in this game. But more than not, I find that in pen and paper, the diseases are check every fucking day to see if you're fucked. And again, you lose like another con or another 2 con or 1d4 con or whatever it is for the type of disease we're talking about. Well, that gives you time to literally say, hey, cleric, I'm fucking dying here. I want you to prepare a remove disease, take a fucking nap, get the fuck up and heal my ass, you jackass. Okay. The plan is what I'm saying. But again, that's pen and paper. That's not this kind of game. This is another... not a downside to games like this on the computer or even on console, like a pre-generated shit. The real downside of pre-generated stuff like this is the lack of imagination. And I hate to say that because the devs have done, and modders too, have done an amazing job. Don't kid yourself here. I'll give you an example. And I know I'm deviating here, but I don't mind. I'll give you an example of a game that got modded where I was playing, not the original game. I was playing, someone had modded their own campaign and made an amazing trilogy. The third one was kind of phoned in, but they knew that. They're tired and want to move on to other things, I don't doubt. But 1 and 2 were fucking amazing, and 2 was better than 1. So it's called Wizard's Apprentice. Was the mod for Neverwinter Nights 2. Wizard Apprentice Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3. And 2 was huge. Chapter 1 was decent, but Chapter 2 was fucking amazing. And then Chapter 3 was done in like a fucking heartbeat. And you're like, what, was that it? Did I miss something? I felt like I missed something. So they, like I said, they kind of phoned it in. But the imagination put behind the uses of spells, because again, Wizard's Apprentice, it's obvious you're playing a wizard type. You didn't have to. I think they allowed you to play even a bard. You definitely could play a sorcerer, but the downside of those were if you had spontaneous spell casting, which means you had a limited spell pick. If you didn't pick the right spells, you got boned. So, and again, quite frankly, that's realistic. I mean, sorcerers are awesome. They're flashing the pain damage. They're usually really good for buffing and or damaging, and that's kind of like one or the other, or maybe a little of both. But they're not the wizard, the MacGyver that can just, I need this spell. Let me take a knee. Okay, I got that spell now. Time to fucking bust open the door with our arcane lockpick, whatever. That's why wizards were awesome. They had a really nice mechanic where they used spells in ways that, like, your character in pen and paper would try to use. It doesn't mean that the DM would agree, but like, who here hasn't tried to use Ray of Frost to fucking freeze a fucking ice flow across the slow-moving pond or river or whatever, so that you could literally walk across the ice? I fucking know I've tried it. The DM's like, sure, go ahead. Cast it 10 times in a row, and only if you crit at least once in those 10 times will I allow it to fucking substantiate enough that you can walk one person across that fucking thing. Shit like that, because we'll have DMs that are actually pretty fucking chill. Pardon the pun. But the point was, they actually put that into the video game of their mod, their actual campaign. They're just like, this should totally be a thing that, like there's a wall that it's like cracked or whatever, and you can damage it, but you can only damage it with like an acid cantrip, or an acid spell for that matter. It doesn't have to be a cantrip, but chances are that's all you had at the time. So you fucking were throwing acid splash at him, and melts, shatters the fucking shelves that were on the back wall, and everything else falls into a big acid puddle of fuck up, and you're just like, whoops. But it's how you progress through the fucking level. It was fucking cool, man. I forget the name of that modder. Apologies, because it's been so fucking long. But feel free to go watch that content. It was one of my earlier videos. They were not the best recordings ever, because I don't think I had the best microphone at the time. But it was definitely a fun play, and it was very, very innovative, I thought. It was this is the type of stuff that it amazed me that there was a modder that not only took the time to figure out how to make shit like that work, but actually cared enough about the imagination, because there's shit that you're like, as a character, I would totally try this, and it would pop up as a fucking option. You're like, oh, you could totally do that. Like, really? What? Really? Fucking awesome. Like, there was like creative uses for like create undead or animate dead and shit like that in that version of the game. Again, his mod, or her mod, sorry, if you're a female character or a female modder. Point is, it was really, really cool, and it's the downside of games like this, where the devs have done a great job, the mods too. Just really wish that they could add just a little bit of more of, like a fine example, and I've seen this in the forums for people bitching, so I don't feel too bad about bitching about it here. You have, let's say a wizard, a cleric, or whatever, who has a charm person spell prepared, ready to use. You go into a dialogue choice. Charm person should be a fucking option if you have, or monster, whatever, for that matter. If you have an option for a spell that's on your list, not saying every spell, but like hold person, hold monster, you should be able to fucking try it in fucking dialogue and say, you know what, this guy's clearly getting hostile. Before he starts swinging, like before the fight starts, hold monster will be my next action, and I'll paralyze him, and that's what initiates the fucking fight, because the fight was clearly going to happen. That's cool. That's an innovative way of doing things. And not to shout out to a different game, but Baldur's Gate 3, they kind of have that built into it, which is really fucking nice that they do that. But again, D&D versus Pathfinder is a little different. It's not that different. And again, end rate. Anyway, these are decent spells, but again, you're probably going to use them sporadically. Again, you'll probably just carry pocket scrolls or whatever potions. Remove blindness, I know I do. And this is one of the ones where I don't think that there's even a check. It's just you're blind, you cast the spell or drink the potion, and then you're not blind anymore. Poof, done. Remove disease, on the other hand, there is a check. So notice that there's the DC of the disease affecting you. So again, the lower level the disease spells are really kind of who gives a shit. But the higher level ones that persist for long periods of time, this could be a real big fuck you. Even with you trying to remove disease. Highly recommend you scum save before casting the spells on your character. Remove curse. Again, another one of those, when you need it, you'll know kind of deals. You almost have to keep track, though, of your the icons that pop up next to your character's picture window. And because there's only so many that can fit on the screen, there's like an up arrow. Then you have to like hover your mouse over that to see the up side of it. And like 3 to 10 or 20 more different buffs and debuffs are on you. You have to scroll through them individually, kind of look at it with your mouse cursor and say, oh, that's a curse. Oh shit, time to remove curse, and again, you get the idea. The one I usually find this one for, and again, this could have been really implemented greatly in this game. They even tried. I will give them props for that. There is cursed items, magic items in this game, like a cursed cloak and ring, whatever, weapon, where it literally says after you figure it out, of course. So if you don't have like identify magic, which in this game is knowledge arcana, I want to think is like the default skill for detecting magical items. If you don't know what it is and you put it on, that's your own goddamn fault for being cursed, because you should know fucking better. I mean, come on, bro. But having said that, they have implemented in it, where if you try to take the item off, like I'm thinking of a cloak, like not only is it a cursed cloak, obviously, the moment you try to take it off, you have to do a saving throw or die, and even if you make the saving throw, like it summons like an astral demon or some shit, like a mean motherfucking monster to fight. And that's fucking no bueno. So, again, how do you solve that problem? Remove curse on your character, which obviously is the cloak. And then if you pass, then you can remove the cloak safely. And I kind of dig that they fucking added that. And that was the vanilla version of the game has that. So I thought that was kind of cool. They could have done more of that, though, I think. And I honestly think that it should always be, this would be something to, again, to go for what a dev could do in the future. I don't mind... how do I say this? Static weapons, like for same replay. The +1 sword is always going to be in that fucking box. The +5 shield is going to be way the fuck up in the tree, whatever. Because again, of course it is. Nothing's changed. Why, just because it's a new playthrough, why would it be a random event? I don't mind that. What I think they could have done though is have a random, like a hidden table roll where, yeah, it's a +1 longsword, but like on a new playthrough, like there's always like a 1 in 100 chance. Like if you just behind the scenes, so you don't see it, you just happen to roll badly, like on Mat 1, you get a cursed item. I think that'd be fucking cool, and you wouldn't know it. It's as far as you know, it's that same +1 longsword, and you're fucking going to town, and you're like, why is my character, like every day, he's like his strength is going down a point. And it's kind of up to you, or have just a high enough knowledge check, or maybe you add another spell where they can identify it and say, oh shit, that's a cursed item. And you'd have to remove curse not only on the character to get them back to full health or whatever, remove the penalty, but also remove curse with a very strong save, I would assume, as you, depending on the type of gear we're talking about, to remove the curse and get it back to being a good sword that you could just continually use, if that was the sword you wanted, for instance, or a ring, or whatever. I think that'd be cool. And I think that'd be easy enough to do for a smart dev or devs to implement in, like, say, the next game. I think that would be very fun. Now, maybe people would fucking just completely hate that. Like, God damn it, I wanted my longsword +1. Why is this one cursed? That's just bullshit. Yeah. But you know what? DMs do that shit to you all the fucking time, where they give you the item that you want. It just happens to house a fucking genie in it or some shit, and just fuck you completely. So adding a little bit of, not you're boned like you're gonna die kind of stuff, but I mean, like, every day you take a fatigue penalty, like you wake up and you're immediately fatigued again, kind of shit, kind of curse. Fuck you. What? And again, you can remove the fatigue with, say, like a lesser restoration spell. But again, the next day when you take another knee, you get the fuck back up. Guess what? You're fatigued again. That would be awesome. I would love shit like that in this game. So certainly that something can be done. But back to this spell. Again, remove curse is a decent spell. Again, I would probably use a scroll, wand, or potion. I don't think potions exist, but scroll or wand, for example, would be a viable option. The downside of those, I would say, I didn't even think about that until just now, there's a caster level check, and I don't think it would go off your caster level. I think it goes off the caster level of the scroll or the wand. Well, that's a bummer. There's a way around that, but not for this type of character. If you ever played my favorite wizard class, what's that called again? Scroll Savant. If they get to level 10 or higher, any scroll, doesn't even have to be a wizard scroll, any scroll that they can cast, they cast at their wizard level, which is fucking tits. So go around with like paladin scrolls and ranger scrolls and fucking, cleric and druid and shit, the stuff that they would normally not have access to as a wizard, but she has a high enough use magic device check, which of course you would invest in. She's fucking casting that shit as if she was a level 10, level 12, level 20 fucking wizard or druid or whatever, and just like buffing up and casting shit that she shouldn't be able to, and all she has to do is just have a shit ton of scrolls on hand, which is just funny as shit. But I think that's a way around that problem. But other than that, this could be, you use up like 5 of your wand charges to remove the curse. It's probably just better to go to a guy that's like a paladin or a cleric in the game and just have them remove curse from you. They will do that, by the way. That's another addition to the game that I was very fond of. Resist Energy Communal, again, nothing wrong with an AoE version. Saves on time. Downside is that it saves on time and that the duration also sucks. 10 minutes is not bad though, and you can do a lot 10 minutes in this game. Just don't be stupid and like leave it off of pause. I mean, you gotta pause that shit when you're not doing anything. If you're thinking about what you're doing, or if you want to like equip stuff and unequip stuff and check on spells and blah blah blah, pause the fucking game. But by and large, this is a solid buff. And then again, the good news on this one is because it's caster level 3. For a cleric, it's different. For you, you're a war priest, so you get level 3 spells by level 7. So by level 7, you're already here at the 20. You see that? So again, it says that 10, 20, or 30, you're already at the 20 mark. And it's a hop, skip, and a jump before you get to 30 resistance to whatever element we're talking about. So that's a nice addition, bonus or perk, whatever, I guess, if you will. Again, a cleric could pick this up as soon as level 5 because it's a level 3 spell, which means, again, they'd still be down here in the range of 10. And again, once they get to 7 and on up, again, it will steadily get better too, so there's no difference there. It's just that I think that it's kind of nice that the War Priest has it delayed in a way where it shows up at like, not half strength, like in the middle, if you will. But again, that 10-minute duration, it's okay. And the fact that it's AoE, and again, centered on the caster, so again, you could not catch someone on the team for that shit. It doesn't, I think, work on your pets, your summons, so that's always the thing for these buff spells. In many cases, you'll see like haste doesn't work on them, the protection spells doesn't work on them. Animal companions are different. Teammates, of course, are different. But if it's like I summoned this undead Skeletor, yeah, he ain't getting hasted, buddy. It really blows in this game. About the one real downside of this game, I'd say, is that your summons don't seem to benefit from this shit. Because they're there. Maybe smoke folk or fake animals or whatever, but at the very least you should be able to buff them, right? But sometimes, or most, if not all times, you can't. It's just kind of a drag. But for the AoE version, this is a solid choice. And for level 3, I wouldn't mind burning a spell slot on something like that. Because that's, again, a really good fuck you to you and the bad guy, or the bad guys trying to damage you. Searing Light. It's a race spell, so there's that chance to miss. But of course, sneak attack potential there. And it can crit, as I didn't add, but it's always implied when there's a chance to hit and a chance to miss, since there's damage. But that's nice. And again, it crits on a nat 20. And you can probably make that better, say improved critical ray spell, ranged touch attack spell, something like that. And then it would be crits on a 19 and 20 then. That's not worth doing in my opinion. But sneak attack potential is always nice. Differing damage amounts depending on the type of enemy. So again, you have just generic, you hit a target for 5d8 of damage max. If it's undead, it's 10d6 of damage max. If it's a construct, it's 5d6 of damage. And while that sounds bad, and certainly it is, at least you have a spell that'll damage a construct. Because many of those fuckers are just straight up immune. So it's kind of nice. I mean, it's not amazing, but I'll take it. And again, it's a ranged touch attack, so it's a race spell. It does what you want, and it has a nice medium range to it too. So there is that too. So I don't mind being the shooting light out my hand laser cleric, what I call or in this case, War Priest. And again, you as a War Priest will have a nice base attack bonus, so your chances of hitting it's going to be pretty fucking solid, even if you didn't go into like point blank shot, precise shot, and all the shit that a normal quote unquote ray caster would do. You're still going to be fine. Just don't shoot it into melee range, because again, it will provoke an attack of opportunity. That's always an issue. Summon Monster 3. Now we're finally getting into our decent summon spells. Summon Monster 3 is the first one that has 3 choices, and from now on they will always have 3. You summon one of the best pet, if you will, and then you'll have a 1d3 of the medium one, the one you used to be able to summon. Back in the day it's only one, now it's 1d3 of them, and then of course 2 steps below that, that's 1d4 plus 1. And again, this is flavor, for those of you that don't know what I mean. 1 lizard is almost as good as 5 dogs. I mean, I know it sounds weird. I mean, the lizard's tough as fuck. He'll survive a lot of shit, but he's going to get killed too. And 5 dogs, it's going to take a lot longer for them to kill those 5 dogs, especially if the dogs scatter. So, you know, it's a little different. And again, the lizard can't set up flanking for himself, but the dogs can, because there's multiples. Same with the wolves. The wolves still have the trip ability, and now you have 1 to 3 of them. If you have augment summoning, this works for all of them. If you have superior summoning, it works for all except for the lizard. Why? Because the lizard, you only summon 1. If there's always a chance to summon more than 1, you add 1 to it. So the 1d3 extraplanar wolves is 1d3 plus 1. If it's 1d4 plus 1 extraplanar dogs, it's actually 1d4 plus 2, but only if you have superior summoning or something similar that gives you like the ability. And again, that's kind of nice, because again, more bodies on the battlefield is usually a benefit to you. Again, the same caveat here is there's a full round to cast it. It doesn't last very long as far as duration. They die real fucking quick. But if you need bodies on the fucking battlefield, you can't really go wrong with your summon monster level 3 and higher spells. Animate Dead. Here's another fine example. Now the downside of this one is it's not a summons. And I used to think it was. It is not. It's a necromancy spell, and therefore it's not a conjuration. Therefore, augmented summoning and superior summoning should not work. Superior summoning definitely does not. Augmented summoning, I'm fairly certain it doesn't work either, because if superior summoning doesn't work, and again, the only real caveat to that was you summon more than 1, this one can summon more than 1, so why can't it also benefit? So if superior summoning doesn't work, then I assume that augmented summoning doesn't work. But this is still a solid spell. This has been changed. Again, this is a vanilla version is different. It doesn't last as long, for one, the vanilla version now, and there was no material component. This one requires diamond dust, and now these things are fucking permanent, I think, until you fucking kill them, or you like go from one floor to another in the dungeon, or like leave the area, then they go away. But, and of course in this one you also need dead bodies, a corpse of some kind, multiple obviously, to summon more than 1 Skeletors. This is fucking cool, and again, thematically makes sense. This is really nice addition. Thank you, modder, whoever did this, because that's fucking cool. I assume that since this is very similar to lesser Animate Dead, where you can only summon 1 at a time, I assume that it behaves in the same manner. What I mean is, if I animate corpses that were all melee fighters, I'll get a lot of melee skeletons. If some of them were rangers, you know, like archer types, then again, I'll get the skeletons that have bows or throw rocks. So they'll be ranged skeletons, if you will. And I have no reason to doubt that. And that's kind of cool. But you do need a body. And I think that's liberal. What do I mean? If you like turn someone into pudding, like you fucking crit them and their body turns into mush and they're just gone, there is no body anymore. I still think that where their fucking bags of goodies, or you know, their gear dropped, you can use this spell on that in that area of effect, and you will raise your animate the dead. It still works, I think. I tested that earlier today, but I can't remember now. But the diamond dust is kind of annoying, but I don't mind material components. Matter of fact, I think they should have added more material components to this game, so I'm that guy. And again, if it's automatically deducted from your bag and you don't have to fiddle with it, fucking add all the material components you want, in my opinion. Fucking throw in that goose down and the fucking bat guano or whatever the fuck else, you know, the little marble you have to hold in the celery stalk and blah blah. You fucking do it. I'll keep it in my pack. I don't mind, and just have them subtracted, and then have a good way of knowing that the spell will not work. You know, like it gets a big X through it, letting you know that you're out of a material component. I have no problem with that. I'd fucking pack that shit all day long. And I think that adds flavor to the game. Now, a lot of people would be like, that's fiddly, that's annoying, that's a pain in the... Yes, it is. That's what it was there for, though. That's the whole fucking reason of what made wizards and other types of casters awesome, but also the eccentric kooks that they were. You know, the weird ass wizard that's always looking around for like animal droppings all the fucking time because he needs it for a spell. Always cutting off a piece of the hair of the fucking animal he just killed because he knows it'll allow him to cast a haste spell or, you know, whatever. It's fucking awesome. It's the whole fucking reason you play those guys, right? So yeah, I'm fine with it, but whatever. This is again the same type of thing though. You get your animated skeletons. They're tough little bastards. They're not particularly great at fighting. There's a limit to how many you can summon now, which makes sense. I think there was before, but the limit was a die roll, say a 1d4 plus 2 or some shit like that. Which, whatever. This is still a nice addition and more pen and paper thematic. I do like the fact that they don't just go away anymore. You know, like if I'm walking through the dungeon and I'm not hopping from floor to floor, they're always there with me until they die. This is fucking nice. That's what they're there for. There's a whole reason. I mean, hell, they're in the lore for D&D anyway. I know it's not the same for Pathfinder, but it's close enough. There's an entire fucking civilization that banks on the fact that like animate dead or probably even it's create undead, but it might be animate dead. They're two different spells. It doesn't matter. Point is that they use those spells for great effect. Where they will literally use as their workforce skeletons and zombies to fucking that they are always controlling to build houses and farm the fields and just like do menial chores so that people don't have to. I mean, that's fucking weird, but I mean, you're telling me you don't have a boss in the real world, in this world, where if they could fucking not pay you and you would always work, you never get tired, you never need to be fed, you don't have to take a piss break. You're telling me they wouldn't fucking go necro-lord on your ass just to fucking have that shit? I guarantee you they would. They'd be like, fuck it, you know, Amazon, run by skeletons now. They would do it in a heartbeat. And again, I kind of dig it. So it's the same general principle here, you know, that they don't just go away in like a minute or two. It's not that. It is, no, I am making this evil monstrosity, so long as I can control him and re-up the spell every so often, they're at my beck and call. And that's what this kind of is. It's just not the re-upping part. Once they're fucking gone, they're gone. So there is no, I recast it every day to make them my horde every day kind of shit, to keep them from gnawing my face off while I'm in bed. But close enough. Deadly Juggernaut, another new spell. This is actually a pretty good one. It's another luck bonus, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So again, another problem-ish in that we have many luck spells, so they don't overlap in a lot of ways. But it's a good one. A cumulative stacking +1 luck bonus to attack rolls, damage rolls for melee, strength checks, strength-based skill checks, that's athletics for those of you that don't know, and strength checks there are in the game, and as well as spells that you have that you roll a strength check, not an athletics check, a strength check, where it is your strength modifier, your bonus to your strength, if you have one, and then you roll a 1d20, and if those two numbers added together is enough to fucking exceed X, then you break out of whatever. That's a strength check. That's a thing. So again, here's a chance to get all the way up to a solid +5, which is where it caps out. You have to, let's see, was it? During the duration of the spell, you gain +1. Each time you reduce a qualifying point to 0. Okay, so anytime you kill somebody, you personally, with this buff on, kill somebody, you get this +1 buff. Then if you kill another guy, now it's up to +2. Then you kill up to 5 guys, it's up to a solid +5. And it lasts until the spell wears off, which is a nice duration on this spell, by the way. So you can eventually get yourself up, and definitely recommend it on a team where, let's say, the War Priest was like, say, Harem. Let him start killing some shit. You know, wound some stuff, get it really low, then send Harem to get a buff. Boom, he's at a +1. Now he's at a +3. Then suddenly he's at the final of +5 and just fucking gonna be tanking like a son of a bitch because it gives you DR2/- for each guy you kill, up to the maximum of 5, so DR10/-, which means nothing penetrates that, by the way. It is physical damage, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing is reduced by 10 for every attack. That's not amazing, but it's equal to Stone Skin, and Stone Skin has DR10/-adamantine, where adamantine penetrates that shit, so this was clearly better. And yes, there are things that can penetrate DR10/-. It's fiddly. Don't worry about that. The point is, it's still solid protection, and it's still solid swing, still solid damage. You do want this on an attacker, a melee attacker, obviously. And again, a solid fuck you to the bad guys, because you're just going to get constantly tougher and and more melee-like, if you will. And on a war priest, I mean, sure, on a cleric you'll appreciate it too, but on a war priest, fuck yeah, this will feel beefy. Invisibility purge. For some reason, I always had that this was a clickable, like an AoE spell that you'd point at the dirt, and in that area, the patch of dirt, if something was invisible, poof, it come back. Now, I've noticed probably for the first time ever that it's an actual personal effect where it casts on you, and you're like a anti-invisibility field guy. Like you're walking around, and anything that suddenly is within your range, poof, the invisible guys are now visible, which is fucking cool. This is actually the way you'd want it. So this is actually a much better spell than I give it credit for. I love the fact there's no save or spell resistance, but again, grain of salt on the spell resistance part. But the saving throw, I'm assuming that is accurate. What does that mean? So if someone's invisible and I have the spell on and he's within 30 feet, unless spell resistance kicks in, which again it says it shouldn't, but again that could be wrong. But assuming that's true, he doesn't have a save. He's suddenly visible now. Fuck you. This is an amazing spell for you and your teammates. Remember, it's not just like true seeing or seeing visible where only I can see it. No, whole fucking team sees it now because he's fucking, boop, now you're visible now, bitch. This is not bad. And it's a nice duration buff. It's centered on you, but so what? You're important. So, be that awesome guy that you always wanted to be. I got no problem with that. But decent spell. Greater Stunning Barrier. Now, again, this is another one added by the modders, and again, I'm a big fan of this one compared to this little brother, the Stunning Barrier level 1 spell. The reason for I like this one a little bit better is it's still the same crappy duration, that 1 round per level, some bullshit, but by now, again, you're level 7 to get this spell as a War Priest, so 7 rounds is not the worst thing ever, and again, you can double it with Extend and blah, blah, blah. So you're getting it to a point where it's fucking functional is my point. And it's a +2 bonus to your AC as well as your saves. And again, that's not that bad. By level 7, you may not have a Ring of Protection +2 or a spell that can do this. Like he will, but not the point. The point is there's still uses here. And the resistance bonus to saving throws, again, a +2 is not bad. You may not have a Cloak of Resistance +2 or something that gives you resistance saves +2 or higher. So this is still useful. The stun component's still crap in that there's a save or suck stun effect. However, unlike the previous spell, the little brother version of the one where as soon as someone hits you, the stun goes off and the spell wears off. No. The stun goes off, and in this time, you can stun a number of creatures total before the spell wears off. Either the spell wears off by duration, or you stun enough people equal to your caster level. So again, go back to your caster level 7. That means I have 7 potential stuns here. Now it says stun a number of creatures equal to your caster level, excuse me. So again, let's say 7. Does that mean it's 7 different? Or can it be the same doofus, like he hits me, he gets stunned. He hits me, he makes a save. He hits me, he gets stunned. Because if that's the case, then this is a lot more fun. Because this is a solid, maybe he will, maybe he won't make that save, but he might get stunned, and we can definitely capitalize on that shit. You can see the appeal. The fact that it doesn't take away the buff from him being stunned once, twice, even up to 6 times minimum, it's a solid fuck you to the bad guys. So again, I can see the appeal on this one now. Again, still would rather, instead of being a standard action, that it would be a swift action. Modders, hey, get on that shit. It's probably not pen and paper, but I don't care. It's a dumb spell otherwise. Even with all the upgrades that I just touted as being useful, it's still a stupid spell. You're not casting that shit. You're better off casting Shield of Faith. +2, and by this time you're probably even up to a +3 armor class. And yeah, your saves may not be better. You also have that, protection from evil, or protection from alignment, spell, which can be like a +2 to your armor and a +2 to your saves against that alignment. And that's just as good as this, and it still lasts longer because this one's 1 round per level. The protection from alignment and Shield of Faith are 1 minute per caster level. So again, the stun is the real catcher here, and it may not be enough to impress enough people. But again, what's the chances people have a real good save against abjurations? Is a will save, so there is that. But again, it's unlikely that they're looking for buffs that, oh, I need my abjuration protection, because there's not very many abjuration spells that have a save. This is one of them. This is kind of cool. And again, I could see having it for fun. But if it was a swift action where it's like, oh shit, like we just got jumped, this would be very cool. And I could definitely see using this. Would I waste a meta magic rod use on it to swift it up? I might. I hate to say it. I mean, it's a level 3 spell, and I could probably think of other stuff that I could cast that would have more fun. Like if we got jumped, where I'm like, fuck you, invis, or displacement, whatever. But I might. If I was in the front ranks and I was fairly certain that the bad guys on the next combat round were going to fucking come after me, not my team, but me, especially if I was going solo, I could see using a meta magic rod to say Swift, and I have a greater stunning barrier on. Because, again, solid buffs, solid saves, and it's not wearing off even on the first few hits. So, come at me, bro. Oh, you're stunned. Oh, that sucks for you. Stab, stab, stab. You can see the fun you can have. Or bludgeon, bludgeon, bludgeon. Whatever. You get the idea. You can see the fun you can have with a spell like this. Sands of Time. Another decent spell that was added. It's a decent one for two reasons. One, there's no save. The bad guys, they specifically talk about how you get like the next age category. So if you're young, now you're middle-aged. If you're middle-aged, now you're old. If you're old, now you're dust, or whatever. Point is, that's not in the game. So instead what they've done is they ballparked it and said, let's just assume that your strength, dex, and your con all went down too. And again, no save, so fuck you. The exception being, of course, ageless and immortal creatures are immune to the spell. I don't even know those exist in this game. I'm sure they do. I don't know how they're tagged ageless or immortal, but maybe the modder knew something I don't. But the other part, if you're attacking a construct or the undead or an object, which again I don't think exists in this game, but constructs and undead definitely are, it's a decent spell for just damaging the fuckers. And I don't think they take the penalty to strength, dex, and con. I could be wrong on that. I think they just take damage. But that's 3d6 plus 1 per caster level up to a 15 max. That means you can intensify it. You could also empower it. You can also maximize it. Not saying you should, but you could. And that could be some decent damage. And it's auto hit, I think. No, wait, no, it's a melee touch attack. My bad. I assumed it was at range. But yeah, so there is that. The fact that there's a melee touch attack, though, I didn't give that enough credit. Because if you're attacking a construct or undead, constructs are probably immune to crits and sneak attack, but undead aren't. And you can do some sneak attack or crit damage with that shit, then that might be okay. You need something. And again, you may say, well, it's a melee touch attack. Do you really want to be meleeing with a construct or the undead? You're a fucking war priest. You're buffed up. You got shields and armor and whatever else for spells. You're fine. If it was a cleric, you probably still, if you're Tristan, no. If you're anything other than Tristan, you're probably okay. So I could still get behind some of these melee touch attacks. And again, you have a good swing. Your attack bonus for a war priest is pretty fucking good. So the chance that you can walk over and go boop to any of those targets, it's pretty fucking obvious you're going to land it. This is cool. And then there's a nice duration. Again, it's not really necessary because, again, against the bad guys, 10 minutes per level. Who the fuck's going to sit there for 10 minutes fighting the same dude, let alone 10 minutes per level? Fuck that. But this is, of course, for, again, as a throwback to pen and paper, where you would get debuffed by the bad guys and you would have to suffer for these penalties for 40 minutes, 60 minutes, 100 minutes, whatever. So sets itself up for like guerrilla tactics, where the DM would send out bad guys, debuff everyone, and run the fuck away, and they maybe lose like 7 of the 10 guys that just attacked you, but the whole team's been poisoned, diseased, and God knows what else, and just constantly getting worn down with every fucking fight. So that's what this is for. That's when I see durations like that, I'm like, yeah, who cares? For you, it doesn't mean shit. It is, if it's a minute, let's just say 2 minutes. If it's a 2-minute penalty to the bad guy, chances are he's lost, the fight's over, and you've probably won. If you can't beat him even with that penalty, then it wasn't that good of a spell. Or your team did not anticipate the severity of the fight, let's say it that way. Channel Vigor, another amazing spell. This one here is a low duration, 1 round per level, but that's not that big a deal for what it does. You get 4 choices on how to cast it, which again, you can cast it 4 separate times to get all 4 buffs if you so choose. I don't think you want to, but hey man, you do that thing. But it's a single person haste spell. That alone makes it awesome. It is and again, the only reason that matters is normally it's a cleric, or in this case a war priest. You don't have access to haste, so fucking awesome. Notice if you use the mind buff, you get a bonus to knowledge and perception checks, and my favorite part, range attack rolls. So if you need a +4 to your swing and you're like bowing it up or hitting them up with a fucking sling staff or whatever war priest might do, this might even work since it says ranged attack rolls, doesn't say weapons. Race spells like Searing Light, which we just talked about, you could shoot that shit a little bit better. There's nothing wrong with that +4 to swing. Just saying, doesn't last long, but fuck it, I'll take that shit. And then the other ones, like the intimidation check bonus for spirit. I mean, yeah, will saves, body, blah blah, all that fun shit too. But the intimidation checks, that could set up things like Cornigan Smash, shatter defenses, Dreadful Carnage combos. And again, you're a War Priest. You're up front. You're probably a strength-based character. Strength, wisdom. Your charisma may be shit, but a nice bonus to intimidation checks goes a long fucking way to make sure that they're scared of you, so that you're setting up that shared defenses. And now everybody's flat-footed to your attacks, and you're just beating the shit out of them. So you can see the fun you can have here. Torso, again, another decent one. Bonus to fortitude saves and concentration checks. And notice that all these are competence bonuses, by the way, which means that they stack with almost everything else that you're going to have, because there's very few things that are competence bonus in this game. There are, especially like gear. Like you'll get gloves of whatever, the competence bonus to knowledge. I'm wearing this hat. So again, it's not going to stack. Whatever is the best one is the best one. But if you cast spells that are like luck bonuses or resistance bonuses to saves, or what's the other category? Morale is another common bonus. Those are all different, and therefore competence would stack with them. So it's a nice thing. The real selling point, though, is the fact you get to choose. The real downside is the duration kind of sucks. Level 4 spells. And we're only an hour and 15 minutes in. Neutralize poison, spit venom, Crusader's Edge, cure and inflict critical wounds, death ward, divine power, freedom of movement, communal protection from energy, restoration, shield of dawn, summon medium elemental, summon monster 4, dismissal, aura of doom, rigor mortis, forceful strike, fleshworm infestation, greater magic weapon, greater path of glory, airwalk, wrathful weapon, and debilitating portent. And as you can see, once we hit aura of doom, I think we get weird shit. This is from modders more likely than not. It's fucking greatly appreciate a lot of good stuff in here. Not only transmutation has a nice showing here, but we also have 3 different saves for transmutation spells. Necromancy is still pulling its weight. It's got 4 of them spells in here and 2 that have saves. Of course, one's going to be your inflict spell. But so what? Still, Necrolord is still a potential here. Evocation even gets a little bit of love. We've got an enchantment in here, and the 1-in-1, so it is 1 spell in there, and then one of it, that same exact spell has a save associated with it. Abjuration even has a save in here. Which one is that? Abjuration. Where are you? There we go. Dismissal. Yeah. Fuck it. Yeah. Really, this is one of the only real abjuration spells I usually associate with having saves. Is like your dismissal and your banishment type spells. We'll get to it when we talk about each one of them. But there's some really good stuff here. Some really nice buffs. And again, divination, weirdly, nothing. Illusion, again, not surprising, nothing. Kind of odd. Conjuration even makes a decent showing here. There's a couple of saves. One, of course, is your cure, and then there's another one in here as well. It's decent. There's a decent list in here. Some stuff that's just going to be, sounds good on paper, but in practice, it's kind of shit. For instance, neutralize poison. You're probably better off if you just do delay poison, right? Sure, you get jumped, shit happens. I get it. But if you can delay poison or gear that makes you just immune to poison, fuck that. You just never have to worry about it. But yeah, it's there. Whatever. Poison, again, just kind of the same way I feel about my disease spells. It's all right for what it does. I'm kind of warming up to them. They're just not that impressive to me. Again, these are the ones that the bad guys will use on you more than you use on them. That sucks. But, it's decent con damage over time. If it weren't for the fact that it's over time, it'd be an amazing spell. The reason that it sucks for you is they have all the time in the world to kill your whole fucking team, because that's the game's whole principle, right? The game is trying to kill you, period. You're trying to kill the game. Well, there's a lot more of the game than there is of you. So here's the problem. You get con damage this fight, you win, but you're still diseased or poisoned in this case. Maybe you cure the poison, but you took con damage. You can't cure that yet. Then you go into the next room. You got another guy that tries to poison or disease you, or does another kind of fortitude save where this fucks you over because you have a lower con. So you see how they're just setting you up for failure more and more and more. This is the problem. But you can't do this to the bad guys. I mean, sure, you can hit him with poison, but he's not going to fucking flee, and then you fight him later, and he's still diseased or poisoned. And that's the problem in these kinds of games. So great for them, terrible for you. Other than that, it's a save or suck spell. I guess it's even worse than that, in that if they fail their first save, there's a check like every other round or whatever to make sure that they're not poisoned at some point. So there's a continual check until they finally cure it, or purge it from their system, if you will. But of course, the entire time they're taking con damage. So there is some fun to be had. It is a melee touch attack, so it can miss. I don't think crits do anything for it because there's no physical damage. It says damage here, but it's just ability damage. It's not quite the same thing. Spit venom, same general principle, except for it has a range. There's no spell resistance on this, which I think the other one actually did have, yeah. So this is actually nice for that. Still con damage, I don't think it's very high, but it's Black Adder, Venom, whatever the fuck that equates to in this game. It's probably like a 1d2, 1d3 per failed save. 1d2 definite. And I only say that because I tested this earlier to prove that it was a ranged touch attack, and it is. So it can miss. Again, on a crit, I don't think it does anything special. But notice that there is 2 effects here. Not just the poison, which is the save or suck part of the spell, but there's a weak 1-round blindness effect because you're spitting it in their eye, is the idea. So obviously people that don't have eyes or can be affected by blindness, this part doesn't do shit. But for that 1 round, fuck you. As long as you hit them, you're blind. It's kind of cool. Can be used for a lot of fun then at that point for you and your team to set up easier hits against easier to hit a blind target, blah, blah, blah. So you can see the fun you can have with this spell, but again, still one of those where I'm just kind of like, meh, and the close range is really close. Crusader's Edge. It's alright. It's really only against evil outsiders, which, from what I can tell anyway, are like demons. Remember, outsiders are like your devils and your demons. Matter of fact, it might even be devils, too. I think outsiders incorporate both. And like mind flayers, I think might be outsiders as well, but I think those are abjurations. Point is, it's a very limited list of bad guys that this really affects. The duration is nice, but so what? You're only going to come through a handful of these fuckers at any given time in this game. If, I hate to say it, if you were to come across more, this would be a good spell. But, there is a save or suck component to it, again, where you hit the target if you crit. There's a nausea conditions. If they make the save, there's actually at least sicken for 1 round. And that's with a successful fortitude save. So there is an effect, period. So it's not really a save or suck spell. I shouldn't say it like that. There is a save and something happens spell. But again, only on the crit, so it gets fiddly. But it's a weapon buff. It's nothing fancy. Cure crit, inflict crit, same as what we saw in the past. Just slightly better, 4d8 plus 20 max case scenario here. That means you can intensify it, but that's only if you have caster levels above 20, which don't exist in this game. However, there's ways around that. There's gear that can give you like a plus 40 or caster level for all your heal spells, for example. A pair of gloves that do that, I think. So you could be technically at 24. Well, again, this caps out at 20, it says, but if you've intensified it, it'd be 48 plus 20 still, but with those gloves on, now it can be 24. Is that worth it? Fuck no. But again, hey man, maybe you want just another casting because it's level 4 and level 5 that way. Nothing wrong with that. This would be the only spell of the inflict and the crit, the single target ones anyway, that I would not mind empowering, maximizing, or intensifying. Because again, it's at max case scenario anyway. So why not get that full 48 turn into 32, I think? Or have the 48 plus 20 get whatever it rolls and multiply it by 1.5 if you empower it. And again, that'd be a level 6 casting. So again, you could see the appeal. But again, it's just more of the same. You know, sneak attacks applicable, crits are applicable. They can be used to hurt, they can be used to heal. It just depends on what we're talking about. Death Ward, decent buff. One that every wizard wished they had in their spell list, quite frankly. Death Ward's an amazing protection bonus to saves, morale bonus no less. So it stacks with your Cloak of Resistance, that's why I point that out. Decent duration, nice bonus to your saves against death effects and death spells. So usually if they have death in the descriptor, then it's probably protected with Death Ward. Makes you immune to energy drain and negative energy effects. That's a variety of different spells as well, but energy drain, think of your innervation and your energy drain spells that give you temporary negative levels per hit. This should make you immune to those things. I think that might be Bork, though. I think I remember testing that out and I got fucking drained, but the trick on that could have been, I think I tested it by having my character shoot my teammate. I had put this buff on my teammate and then I just said, no, fuck it. Force attack him with like energy drain or innervation, and it still drained him. And the trick on that then might be, because he's my teammate, he's assuming it's a buff, and therefore it just goes through, which obviously it isn't. So if it's against the bad guys, it might still work. So again, grain of salt on that, but it says it works. I would be very leery of testing that shit out, but I would definitely want the buff on, period, anyway. So yeah, just keep an eye out for those energy drain effects. It also makes a note here to point out that it doesn't do anything against you already having negative levels. You don't cure them or suppress them or anything like that. No, you're fucked. So again, it's one of those you pre-buff up with this spell. It's not a suppression spell like the other ones we saw earlier. Divine Power. Now we're talking. This is one of the go-to spells for a cleric, or in this case, war priest. A massive luck bonus to a variety of things. You saw similar buffs in another spell, but let's talk about this one. It's bonus to your attack rolls. It doesn't say it has to be a melee weapon, by the way. It says your attack rolls, your weapon damage rolls, and again, doesn't say melee. Strength checks and strength-based skill checks. We saw that before. All of these can get up to a maximum of +6. It's per 3 caster level. It's +1. So I think by the time you pick this up, you're see at 1, and then at 4, then at 7, then at 10. You're level 10 by the time you can pick this up as a war priest. So you're probably at like a +3 for sure at this point. And again, that's good because that's the same amount of +3 attack and damage buff that you got from Divine Favor. Remember I said that there's that other one that wouldn't stack with it very well, but that doesn't mean you don't want both. Divine Favor you use in a small skirmish like you get jumped in the forest. This is the one you use in the goddamn dungeon because it has the potential for lasting longer. 1 minute, 2 minutes, maybe 4 if you extended it. And it gives you some temp HP, gives you an extra attack around, very similar to haste, and therefore won't stack with haste or a speed weapon. But that's an extra attack around. And again, you're a war priest. You're not even a cleric. You're a war priest. You'll get, by the end of your build, with just 1 weapon in your hand, a non-speed weapon, just a generic weapon in your hand, you'll get 4 attacks. So with this, you'll get 5. So that's not bad. I appreciate the extra HP, even if it's temp HP. That shit gets taken off the fucking top, keeps my ass alive. It's 1 per caster level, so a maximum of 20. And this, I guess something. It just doesn't last very long. And again, it is a luck bonus, which again would get a lot of those. But just know which spells are your luck bonuses so you're not wasting them is my advice to you. Solid spell otherwise though. And again, you will just Ginsu Shev through a lot of shit with that +6 when you get it to max. And I think it caps out at, I think at caster level 18 is when that caps out with the +6. And again, that's a solid fuck you. It's a massive amount of hit bonus, a massive amount of damage, and all the little fiddly bits besides. But you just literally just start tearing the shit up with Divine Power on. Throw on, say, Righteous Might on top of that, and holy fuck, you got a mean son of a bitch. Freedom of Movement, obvious spell for protection for you, a teammate, a nice buff, long duration, no real problem with it. It basically stops you from being slowed, impeded in any way, paralyzed. Excuse me, yeah, I got the yawns today. But the paralysis effect, immune to paralysis, excuse me, is a lifesaver, especially if you're soloing. If you've never tried this game solo, even on the normal difficulty, this game can be a real bear if you get to those certain areas where the bad guys are slapping down the whole persons and the whole monsters and other effects that paralyze your ass. Because if you don't have paralysis or a high enough save to avoid that shit, you get boned real fast. I fought in the Tenebris Depths once solo. I took like my main character. I thought he was a badass, and he was, but he didn't have like freedom of movement, and I didn't have the right gear with me at the time. I don't think, like I have a pair of boots, I think, that gives you freedom of movement for free, or a sword or some shit like that. But I didn't take it with me, and I went to this one area where there's a main boss fight. Motherfucker paralyzed my ass, or his minions did, no less. And then they proceeded to come over while I was paralyzed and just continue to beat the shit out of me till I died. There was nothing I could do about it. I didn't have pets summoned. There's nothing I can do. Fortunately, I had saved earlier. And the way I got around it, because I didn't want to go all the way back to base to get the fucking booties, and then come back out and, you know, buff up and just fight him some more. I was like, fuck this. I can beat him without it. How do I do that? Well, what I did was I made sure to cast Resist Energy Acid on myself. And by that point, I think I was resistant all the way up to 30. And then I just cast, when the fight, just before the fight started, where they were going to fucking come through the door where I was standing and paralyze my ass, I cast like 3 acid fogs right on top of each other. They lasted for only like 18 rounds each, and there was one round and then the next round and the next round, so they were staggered. Opened the fucking door, the fight started, and I retreated back into the fog, deep into it. So when they fucking paralyzed my ass, like, I attacked from range, I had spells. When they finally paralyzed me, which it was inevitable, I was paralyzed. They were fuck all I could do, but then the 2 bastards that paralyzed me, they run up on me and try to fucking melee me, because they're stupid fucks. And they run up on me and just milk their flesh off in like 3 combat rounds from the 3 different acid fogs on top of them. Just boom, boom. And I'm immune to all that shit because, of course, I had resist energy. Again, battle tactics. It's shit you can do to get around stuff, but it sucked. And I had to do that fight like 3 times that way because I knew it would work. Eventually, I'd get lucky with the rolls where they rolled badly and it would kill them. And it was enough, but oof. It was a pain in the ass. And then after that, once the paralysis wore off and it was me against the main boss, I think it was like the Weary Traveler or whatever, He was a pansy, or she was a pansy. Could kick their ass. But it was they had like 2 archons or something. I think is what they call them. They're like divas and like angels or whatever. And the motherfuckers were just mean. So a spell like that would have trivialized that fight. Because once you can't paralyze me, bam, 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 just beat the fuck out of you just for trying. Screw you. And again, it's another one of those spells where when you need it, you'll know, because you're like, well, I should have used freedom of movement. Well, shit. And this one's nice in that you can cast it on other people. So again, just you, but your teammates. Again, something that, like, I'll have this in like Tristan's back pocket as a cleric. And he won't use it on himself, because you would think, well, of course he's going to protect himself. No, he's going to protect the fucking tank, because Tristan being able to heal is awesome, but he can only heal so much. If the tank is just paralyzed and just taking it on the chin every combat round, Tristan can't keep up with that shit. So no, if you can slot it twice, sure, Tristan gets one, and then the main fighter tank frontliner gets one. Or I've actually gone reverse, where I've done Tristan gets it, and then like the ranged attacker like Ekendayo or Octavia will get it. Why? Because they're high DPS, and if they get fucked out of paralysis, then I'm dragging a fight out for a lot longer than it needed to be. Either of those guys can do serious damage in a combat round and trivialize many fights. If they get paralyzed, we just lost out on all that. And this is the spell that you want to make that go away. But usually, like, as much as I love this spell and I'm touting its benefits, which are plenty of them, there's almost always a piece of gear out there, like a ring or a cloak or a booty or a glove or a fucking dagger or whatever, that if you hold it in your little fingers or wear it on your little finger or whatever, you have immunity permanently. It's like, it says continuous freedom of movement effect. I look for those and give them to like one person at least. Like there's when you get in chapter 2, like a mace that you can get. Or heavy flail? No, it's a mace. Heavy mace, yeah. It's heavy mace that you can give, and I usually give it to like Harem and let him just be fucking immune to paralysis and shit forever. And it does decent damage. It's like 2d6 of damage instead of the typical damage, so it's not a bad little weapon. Then I give it to Harem and say, here, go Harem. You're never a problem when it comes to paralysis and shit. He just routinely walks through like web spells and grease spells and just goes to town and beating on guys. This is a solid upgrade. Protection from energy communal, just like we talked with resistance from energy communal. Nice AoE. You might not get everybody in. It doesn't last very long. But again, for this spell, this is actually not a problem, because 10 minutes, you're probably going to have, when you need it, you'll probably use that 10 minutes up. The force field up before the 10 minutes is up. So I don't mind this one. And it's the same solid 120 total absorption capacity per person, which is again nice. If we knew that total, that'd be better, but just keep track of it. And again, you can be immune from that damage up until that 120 gets popped. So a decent spell. Surprised that this one doesn't have actually a material component to it, quite frankly. Restoration, another one with a material component. Diamond dust, again, I think this was an addition, but I can't remember. But restoration spells are amazing. Again, just like a lesser restoration, except they can now take away like temporary negative levels or one permanent negative level, which it does exist in this game, and those real suck. So this really is a life-saving spell beyond all measure. Really nice. I probably wouldn't slot it more than once or twice though on any main character. If this comes in potion form, if it does, then I would definitely take it, or a wand or a scroll, and just pack them up and use that. More than enough. But again, the ability to remove those negative levels is a real life saver in many instances. Shield of Dawn. It's another one of those spells where I want to like it, but I don't like it because it implies I'm getting hit. But it's going to happen, so I shouldn't really bitch. It doesn't last very long. That's the other real quibble here, and the fact that it's a standard action, that means I'm not attacking. Those are all bad things for me. If this was like, again, I keep harping on this, but if this was a swift action spell where it's like, oh fuck, Shield of Dawn, I could get on board. If it weren't for the fact that it's a standard action, that would be good enough for me to want me to use this spell. But it's piss. It's a terrible idea. And again, they can be overcome with nothing more than ranged attackers or reach weapons. So like your two-handed like bardishes and your glaives and shit that have like a long spear that have a 6-foot reach, bam, you're not even affected by this shit. So fuck that. But for sometimes, and again, like that fight I just mentioned, those guys are using, I think, I'm fairly certain, like elven curved blades or longswords. Those are a normal reach weapon. If I was paralyzed but I had this on, they'd be taking damage every time they fucking hit me. So there is some reasons to want this shit, but again, it's a situational at best. Summon medium elemental. Now we're talking. Now, this is probably the first elemental spell you get that's worth a fuck. The small one is just garbage, in my opinion. These ones are actually decent. They're not so big that they're in the way. They're not so big that it's easy to hit them. They're basically human-sized, and they do good damage. They do have some fun, and I mean, there's not a wrong one of the four, in my opinion. At this level, you can grab any of the four and probably do a solid amount of fun with them. Obviously, play to type. So if you're fighting like fire immune targets, don't summon the fire elemental. I mean, come on. But you know, the water elemental, the earth elemental, just it's a bludgeoning son of a bitch. The air elemental will just suck the wind out of everybody with that whirlwind attack that they do. It's fucking cool. But I think some of those attacks aren't teammate friendly, so be wary. But this is a really nice tank for you to slap down. So I usually do the earth because I think he has the highest armor class. Slap him down. He's a slow-moving son of a bitch. But I tell you what, get behind him and just let him go to town. He will just tank like no one's business, and you just walk around the corner of him and just beat the motherfucker that's beating on him, and you'll do fine. This one does not benefit from superior summoning because, again, you never only summon one elemental at a time with this spell. That doesn't mean you can't summon more than one with another use of a spell. I don't think it makes the others go away, per se. So you could summon one of each if you wanted to, but it would be 4 different castings. But it will benefit from augmented summoning. It is a conjuration spell, and therefore they'll get a +4 to their strength and to their con, which is, again, for the earth elemental, a very big boon because he's a strength-based son of a bitch, as you can imagine. The water elemental, I think, is the next one that's strength/con based. So again, augmented summoning benefits him as well. The fire and the air, they benefit from it, of course, but they're dex-based attackers, and they have a high dexterity. So getting a plus to strength and con is helpful. It's not as helpful. Still decent, and you'd appreciate augmented summoning for, say, something like this, in my opinion. But it still falls into that same problem of a full round to fucking summon them of the whoop-a-dib-a-dib. Fuck that shit. But again, if it weren't for the low duration and that full round casting, it is a solid spell, and I would at least slot one just to have some fun with it. Summon Monster 4, nothing to see here other than the fact that it's an upgraded version of level 3. Notice now we get the 1 dire wolf, 1 to 3 monitor lizards instead of 1, 1 to 4 plus 1 extra planar wolves instead of 1d3. So again, everything shifts, right? And now here's our new guy. Here's our dire wolf, and he's a tough son of a bitch. But again, same general principles that we saw with Summon Monster 3. Dismissal, an abjuration spell with a saving throw. This is a roar suck spell. The instant go away spell is what I call this. It's like, fuck you, get out. But again, it's only against summoned critters, or the extra dimensional ones, I think is what they call it. But it's basically implied. If it's like a summon pet, summon monster, or even one of those elementals we just talked about that someone summons, you can use this spell on one of them. Just one. Dismissal is a single target. But Big Brother Banishment, I want to say, is AoE. But we haven't seen that spell yet. We'll talk about it when we get to it. This is still a solid spell. I hate the save or suck component of it, but it's what it is. You have a pretty good shot at landing that shit, though, I'd say. It's not that those guys that you're fighting have a high will to begin with. Some may, but not all. So this is a decent, take something off the battlefield permanently. And it's not they're dead per se, they're just gone. And the downside might be that I don't know if that gives you XP for that, or if they even drop their gear if they had, because they're supposed to be banished to their dimension is what that's supposed to be. But if it's a fight that I just don't want to deal with that prick, I like Dismissal. Or of Doom, this is a new spell, I think. This one's kind of getting a nice personal effect AoE debuff spell, not buff, like I say, because it's, again, centered on you, so I think of it as a buff. Nice duration. Bad guys that come within the area of effect do a will save, or they're basically scared. They're shaken. Which, again, sets up your typical fear effect, your shattered defenses, all that kind of cool jazz, which is pretty cool. There's no spell resistance. Again, if that's accurate, that's pretty boss. There's a save throw, so it's a save or suck spell proper, but now some good news is it's a save or suck per bad guy. Again, no surprise there. But, and this is the weird trick, if they leave the area of effect and then come back in it, they recheck. So if they pass their check, I think it's possible for you to run the fuck away, make that, them exit the field, the AoE effect. When they come back in, they'll make another fucking check. You might get lucky and then they'll fail the next one. So that's cool. It's not great, but it's a decent enough tactic that I'd probably try it. And the duration is awesome. 10 minutes per level. That's a fuck you like crazy for the bad guys. This is a decent spell. Definitely recommended. Oop, go back one. Rigor Mortis, another new spell. And then very nice single target auto hit spell. Nice range, no spell resistance. The Fortitude save is just for half damage and removing the penalties. But still, the fact that it does damage still is a solid choice then at that point for any target, in my opinion. It's a decent penalty to dexterity, and it slows their speed down a little bit, like 10 feet per round. With that -4 to dex, that's a solid screw you to armor, reflexes, and maybe their attack if they're ranged attackers or weapon finessing. So you can see the appeal. The fact that it's a Fortitude save, this would be an amazing one to slap on a goddamn rogue because it's not a reflex save. Fuck over his dexterity and his decreased speed, and give him auto damage. Solid spell. The problems with it are minor. It's the fact that the save can remove the debuffs and, of course, decrease damage by half. But that's a typical, so I'm not even considering that really a problem. Forceful Strike, on the other hand, is an amazing swift action spell. Now, this can have two uses, in my opinion. One is, I'm in combat, I really just want to finish this prick off, swift action, and still attack. Awesome. Or, notice that the duration on this is 1 minute or until discharge, which means you can pre-buff up with this for a minute. Like, the fight starts, you're not even near a guy. You're just like, you know what, the first dude I hit, I want to fucking, kill him. I want to, do some extra damage. Here's a good way of doing it. Swift action, walk over to the guy. Even if you don't get to attack him that round, you still got a minute to discharge the spell. And it's auto at that point. Once you've cast the spell, your very next melee attack, bam, it's going to discharge the spell, which does up to 10d4 of force damage, 1d4 per caster level. That implies that you could probably intensify it. Certainly you can empower and maximize it. You can see the fun you can have here. Obviously we're talking about meta magic rods, more likely than not. But an extra 40 force damage is a fucking big screw you to a bad guy. And force is not heavily resisted in this game. And it has a knockback or pushback ability. That doesn't knock them down, I don't think, but it has a chance to kind of like blowers where they go flying back away from you, which means you could play a little dungeon pool with them, shoot them towards another teammate, and then have your teammate beat the shit out of them, or have him fall back into the web spell he just got out of, or into the grease spell, or to a pit. You get the idea. So you can have some serious fun with this. Ignore the too many spell descriptors. I forgot to delete that. But save for no pushback and half damage. That's what the save is for. So yeah, half damage is still there. And again, 10d4 dropping down to 5d4 technically is not that big a deal to me. But no pushback, and I'm not really relying on that all that much. It's just a nice little perk. And the fact that it's a swift action allows you to cast it in combat and then swing still. I love spells like that. Fleshworm Infestation. Interesting spell. This is a disease spell, sort of. It doesn't say disease. It's an evil spell. You basically are summoning fleshworms on top of somebody to fucking burrow into their skin and do constant damage. As you can see, dex penalty and blah, blah, blah. It does a minor, like a lame 1d6 damage per round. But the trick is this. If they make the save for that round, they're fine. They're only sickened for 1 round instead of all the other shit that they could have befelled them. But that does not negate the spell. No. Every round, they make another check. And you can see there's a duration on this spell. So the fucking every round, it's just fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you some more. And again, the thing that prevents it, you can love this, it specifically says, fleshworm infestation cannot be ended early by remove disease or heal, as the infestation starts anew if the current worms are slain. Cool. Protection from evil. This is one of those I told you that the modders added, which is cool but stupid all at the same time. Protection from evil negates this spell's effects for as long as the 2 durations overlap. Well, that's 1 round per level. Protection from evil is 1 minute per level, so certainly you're going to fucking exceed that. No problem. But, 1, what's the chances the bad guys get this spell? Probably non-existent. Why? Because a modder made this spell. So how do they have access to this spell book? Probably not something that they've coded into the game, if you will. So thematically it makes perfect sense, and I love when they do shit like this, but this is not going to help you at all. And again, it doesn't hurt you either, because if you're like, you use this on the bad guy, what's the chances the bad guys have protection from evil on themselves, or even think that, oh shit, I've been infected with fleshworm infestation, which I didn't know existed until just this moment. Let me buff up with protection from evil, which I just conveniently happen to have. Bullshit. So that's fucking cool. It's helpful. The downside is it's not really, this part is completely useless at that point. But it's nice that they added it at least. I mean, I appreciate that they tried. If they could find a way to make it where the bad guys had access to that spell, then there's a reason now for me to have protection from evil. Remember we talked about this in the last video. This is one of the reasons that I like modders. A greater magic weapon. Now there's two versions of this. Make sure you're grabbing the right one. One came from Eldritch Arcana. The other came from Call of the Wild. But Call of the Wild has been really helpful when it comes to spells like this, in that they understand that some players will have two-weapon fighting. So the spell can be cast, and it can either be on your main hand weapon or your offhand weapon. So make sure you're grabbing the right one, in my opinion. And I mean by spell as well as which version of the spell you're casting, as far as, if you click the offhand weapon and you don't have an offhand weapon, or one that can benefit from this anyway, maybe you got the +5 weapon in your offhand, for example, this would be useless on that. So know that. Notice that it cannot exceed a +5 buff, which means your +5 is limited by the weapon itself. If both weapons you have, let's say you're two-weapon fighting, if both of them are +5s, this is a useless spell. If one's +5, the other's +4, make the +4 +5. That's all you're going to get out of this. And yeah, maybe that's not that big of a deal to you, but it's a +1 to your swing, and then it's a +1 to your damage, and it lasts for a long fucking time. Now the real caveat downside of this one would be really this here. It doesn't work on natural weapons, which includes your unarmed strikes, your claws, your bite attacks that you may have had from spells or other abilities. So it doesn't work on that. That's what Magic Fang is for, and you don't have access to that spell, which is a bummer. Greater Path of Glory. We talked about Path of Glory already, but this is basically the same version, just better. Instead of healing 1 round, it's 5 a round. So awesome. Nice heal. Hard to line up. It's one of those, again, where it's a straight line on the dirt. If you're facing the point where you click, the direction from you to where you click is the straight line. It's perpendicular to that will be where the path is. So if you try to click it under your feet, it could go off at weird fucking angles, just depending on shit. So I would literally cast it like a foot in front of me to be obvious where it's going to be, and then walk it into a foot in front of me, so I'm in the buff. But decent amount of healing, especially for cheap pocket healing. And I mean, when I say that, I mean fight's over, everyone's taking damage. Instead of just constant AoE heals or wasting silly spells to heal everyone, cast this on the fucking dirt, line up the team where everyone's standing on the glowing patch, and for every round they'll heal 5 for many rounds. If at full strength at 20 rounds at level 20, that's 100 fucking healing per person. Or if you extended it, that's technically 200 healing. That's a lot of fucking healing from one spell. For a level 4 spell, that's pretty fucking good. Airwalk. This one's different, and I think it's the Call of the Wild that modified this one. Airwalk in Eldritch Arcana, I think, had this too. It was the exact same effect as Fly. I want to say where it gave you like dodge armor class. This one does not do that. And I'm okay with that, because this is probably more pen and paper. Decent duration, immunity to difficult terrain and ground-based effects, and that's really all it's doing for you. What does that mean? Well, like grease spell, web spell, anything that's, like it put dirt on the ground or rubble on the ground where it's like slowing you down, impeding your movement. This would prevent that. That's nice. Now, what won't it prevent? Like, say you slap down Obsidian Flow directly underneath your feet, or Tar Pool for that matter, where it's going to do damage. You'll still take fucking damage, which kind of sucks. Especially for Tar Pool, because it'll damage every round. But what won't it do? Tar Pool and Obsidian Flow should slow you down, which means you're stuck in the effect or slowed in the effect, so you're more likely to take more damage. Well, if Tar Pool's down, and yeah, I was stupid and hurt myself initially, well, I can run right the fuck out of it. And I mean run, because again, this character's not impeded with the spell on. So Tar Pool's not doing more to you after that, really. You just need to make sure you're out of the effect. But don't stand in it, because you would think that you're immune to it because it's a ground-based effect. It shouldn't work on that. Wrath Weapon. It's a nice weapon buff, a nice duration, but the downside is it's kind of like your protection from alignment. You have to know the alignment of the bad guys you're going to be fighting, because you have to set the weapon in advance. Are you hurting lawful targets? Are you hurting chaotic targets? Are good or evil? And of course, caveat for that then is anything that's true neutral. It doesn't matter what kind of buff you slap on that shit, like animals that are true neutral, completely useless against them. Debilitating Portent, that's a nice one. A single enemy debuff, a nice range to it. Duration's whatever, 1 round per level at this point doesn't bother me, because it's going to be many rounds, and the fight will probably be over very quickly. But it's a solid fuck you to the bad guy. A will saving throw anytime. Now, so it's going to be multiple saving throws, presumably, that they'll be doing. Anytime they try to make an attack or cast a spell, they make a saving throw to even see if they succeed in doing the thing that they're trying to do. And if they fail, half damage with attack or spell. Fucking just awesome. Gotta love shit like that just trivializes damage coming my way. And I could see the appeal here. So I kind of dig this spell. So could be definitely used for especially a solo run where you're fighting a main nasty bad guy. Even if he makes the will saves, that's a thing. It lasts for many, many rounds. He'll have to make the check every goddamn time. So there's always the chance that he will fail it. Could be a lifesaver. But with that, that's all we had to talk about today for levels 3 and 4. We have another video to do for level 5 and 6, and that'll be coming in probably a week. As you guys know, I'm looking for work, so kind of have to focus on that right now. But we're doing well for videos, I think. I still have to put together this weekend a video I said I'd do for someone for a strength-based Slayer, I want to say. I have to look up my notes to find out what me and him were toying with for the idea, because I know I did a dex base that he was pretty happy with. I wanted to say I was going to do a two-handed version. Matter of fact, I'm fairly certain that's what we discussed. So it'll be something that's going to capitalize on using a really good category, a two-handed weapon. That could be like a quarterstaff, spear, other ones I just can't think of, like glaives, the bardiche, there's shit of that nature. Some have reach, some will not, so that'll be why that build's going to be hard for me to nail down for what I'm shooting for. I think I'm trying to do a cleave build, which means I want reach. But I don't know that that's necessary. I might have more fun just doing like a two-handed staff-wielding son of a bitch. And the reason I'm thinking about that is because I'm thinking I might do, because they've already toyed with the idea of dipping out of Slayer, not going all 20 levels. I might do a strength-based build where I do a monk dip to give them some fucking cheap-ass armor with wisdom. They get a flurry of blows, which includes the quarterstaff, which is a two-handed weapon. And they can just go to fucking town with an extra attack that way and make it a speed weapon so they get another attack that way. And it's a two-handed fighting style, so they'll get extra damage more likely than not with that quarterstaff, a power attack, and blah, blah, blah. I think that's what I was thinking. Matter of fact, I'm fairly certain that's what I was thinking. I have to look at my notes again. But that's basically what the next video is probably going to come up with, guys. But with that, my name is Brother Mean. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea. I know this is just like going back to fucking school. But I do think that this is important to talk about the spells for each of these classes, especially since we're getting so many new ones and what they do, how they interact. That's why I'm doing these videos. So this may not be for anyone's edification other than my own. But I do like doing these types of videos too, as I used to teach back in the day. But with that, I'll see you guys soon. Bye now.